Hello everyone, this is Sai Dinesh Gatvati and I'm your chess coach. This is our second video which we are going to learn about the pieces, how it travels, what is the value of that and all. In this chessboard we will have 64 squares and we will have 32 pieces for the both players. White will have half of them, means white will have 16 pieces and black will also have 16 pieces. In that 16 pieces we will have 6 type of different pieces for each team. These are the 6 type of pieces which we will have in the chess game. This first one will be called as king. In chess, king is most valuable piece. We will play the game to do the checkmate to our opponent king. If our king dies, we will lose the game. If our opponent king dies, he will lose the game. We can play the game if any other pieces has captured also, but if we lose the king we can't continue the game. Our king is like a weightlifter. He is slow but he's very strong. Our next piece is queen. So this is the second valuable piece in our game. She can move any number of squares vertically, horizontally and diagonally. At the beginning, each player will start with one queen. Our next piece is rook. So this is the third in command. So the first command is king, queen and the rook. Each rook can travel vertically and horizontally. Each player will have two rooks at the starting of the game. Our next pieces are bishops. Bishops are the pieces which travels in a diagonal manner. We will have two types of bishops here. One is a white square bishop, another one is a dark square bishop. So these two bishops will travel in two different diagonals. I will explain it later. And our next piece is knights. We already know it as a ghoda and all. So these are the knights. This is a very unique piece which travels in a different direction. It travels in L shape and it can jump over the pieces also. Each player will have two knights at the starting of the game. Our next material or the pieces are the pawns. The pawn is a very numerous piece in the chess. We will have a lot of pawns in the game, also the weakest pieces in the game. The pawns historically represents infantry or armed peasants. Each player will have 8 pawns at the starting of the game. So let's count the total pieces here. So we will have a king, 1 queen means 2 plus 2 rooks 4 plus 2 bishops 6 and 2 knights 8. And we will have 8 pawns. 8 plus 8 16 pieces for the white. For this black also the same thing. 1 king, 1 queen, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 2 knights and 8 pawns. In chess, each and everything will be divided equally. Okay, let's learn about the pieces. This is our rook. Rook is a piece like a castle, which will be placed in the corners of the board. We will have 2 rooks for white and 2 rooks for black. This is the piece which travels in a vertical and a horizontal ways, means in a standing lines and the sleeping lines. Means it can go forward and it can come backward, it can go right side and it can go left side. Now this rook is on e4 square. From this e4, in the front side, if it wants to go to the e5, it can go there. If it wants to directly go to the e8, even it is also possible. If we don't have any blockades or any opponent pieces or other our pieces, this rook can go until the ending of the board. This rook travels in a vertical and horizontal ways, even it captures also in a same way. In this position, our opponent knight is on b4 and our rook is on e4. So the common thing in these two pieces are both are placed in a fourth rank. That's why this rook can capture this knight in a sleeping line or a horizontal way like this. We will replace the piece and we will place our rook over there like this. The value of the rook is 5 points. Each and every rook will have a value of 5 points. So when it comes to the symbol, the rook symbol is capital R, because of we have to pick the first letter of that piece that will become the symbol for that piece. Okay, so the first letter in the rook is R, so that's why we are taking R here, and whenever we are writing the notation we have to use capital R. R indicates the rook. Now this rook can travel into 4 directions. Let's see what are they. And so it can go up, it can go down, it can go right, it can go left. In these 4 directions this rook will travel. Okay, so for how many squares? This rook can travel into 1 square up, or 2 squares up, or all the way up. That is our player's wish. If you want to move it here, still it is possible. If you want to move it here also, still it is also possible. If you want to move all the way up, still that is also possible for the rook. Now when it comes to the backward manner, this rook can come 1 square backward, or 2 squares backward, or all the way back, like this. When it comes to the right side, it can go 1 square right, or 2 squares right, or all the way right. Means it can reach this square also in one. Okay. And the next thing is towards the left side. In the left side, still this rook can go 1 square, 2 squares, or 3 squares. Means whenever we place our rook in the center, it can travel in these 4 directions into the all the squares, because of nothing is stopping our rook, right? So that's why our rook can travel into the all the squares. So let's see, towards the right side, 1 2 3 4, it can travel 4 squares. Towards the left side it can travel 4, down side it can travel 3, up it can travel 4. So this is our rooks traveling. Now let me place some of our opponent's material and our material. Then let's see how the rook travels. So let me place our opponent material here, our material here, and okay. Now this rook can travel all the squares at the down, all the squares at the left, because nothing is stopping us. When it comes to the right side, it can travel only these two, because of here our own pawn is there, so we can't capture our own material with our rook. Okay, not only with our rook, we can't kill our own material. So this rook can't come to the g4 right now. At the same time it can't reach the h4 also. Okay, and the next thing is it can go forward. Means it can reach these 2 squares. If you want to kill the opponent material, we can do that. If it is a pawn, if it is a knight, if it is a bishop, or if it is any queen or something, you can capture it. But remember one thing, we can't kill the king with the help of any pieces. Okay, because of the king is the most valuable piece. I already told you the value of the king, right? So the king's value is infinity, so we can't kill the king in this chess game. Okay, so we have to do the checkmate, then only we will win the game. So if you kill the king, that will become illegal. Okay, you will lose. Whenever you make illegals, you will lose the game. So first illegal is permitted. Whenever you make the second illegal, you lose the game. Okay, so we can reach these 2 squares with our rook, but we can't travel beyond that pawn, because of this pawn is blocking our rook's way, so we can't travel beyond it. Okay, even this side also this pawn is blocking us, we can't travel beyond this pawn. So this is how our rook travels and captures. Whenever it comes to the capturing the opponent material, whenever your opponent material is in your rook's way, then only the rook can capture it. Okay, sometimes it is not necessary to place your opponent will place all of the pieces in your rook's line, right? So he will place somewhere else. Then what we have to do, how do we attack them? Let's see that one. So let me place some of our opponent's material more. Okay, so in this position one of our opponent pawn is in our rook's line. Okay, so if you want to capture it, you can do that. But what about the others? So other pawns are not in our rook's way. Then what we have to do? we have to move our rook into that pawn's way. How do we do that? Let's see. Suppose this pawn is in a b2. So either you should move your rook to the b file and attack it, and the next move you will capture it, or you can move your rook to the d2, then you can kill it in the next move. But if you ask me, I would like to move my rook to the b4 square because of this pawn already reached the second rank. So whenever this pawn reaches the first rank, it will get promoted. Means that pawn will get a superpowers and it can transform into a queen or any other material. So once your opponent make that much material, we have to save our rook. We have to move our rook for the safety purpose, or else our opponent queen will capture our rook. Okay, so it is always best if you attack your opponent pawns in the same file. Okay, so if we move this rook to here, now let's see. Whenever your opponent make it queen, still your rook can capture it. Then nothing will happen. Your opponent can't make it as a queen. So if your opponent promotes this pawn and if you make a queen, still this rook moves to the f1 and it can kill that queen also. Okay, like this our rook can capture the opponent material. So suppose if you want to capture this pawn, okay, then what you have to do, you should move your rook to the g4 square. From here we are attacking the g5, and in the next move, whenever your opponent makes a move, you can grab the g5 like this. So whenever our rook is in the middle of the board, okay, suppose this rook is on d4 square. So this rook can completely travel into the d file because of nothing is stopping us. It can travel completely on the fourth rank. Okay, so this is how the rook travels, and I already shown you when we play some of our pieces and some of our opponent pieces, we already saw that how the rook can't travel. It can't travel whenever the path is closed by some material. Okay, so it can't jump over the material. Okay, suppose our opponent two pawns are in the our rook's line. So let's see. So in this position, if you want to kill the opponent material, we can kill this one. But can we kill this one in one move like this? No, it is not possible because of immediately this pawn is stopping us. First of all, you should clear this pawn, and next you should kill this one. Okay, first rook into d6, after that rook into d7. It will take two moves to capture all those two pawns. If you want to jump over the pawn, it is not possible with the rook. Now we have our rook and some of our opponent's material. So now we have to move our rook and capture opponent's material, and we are going to write the notation also. At the right side here you can see the notation. Means it's a script which we write. Whenever we make a move, we will write that move. Okay, I already told you that we have to use capital R for the rook. Okay, so whenever we are capturing our opponent material, we have to use X symbol. Immediately after the piece name, we have to use X symbol. That indicates we captured our opponent's material. Okay, and the next thing is we have to write the arriving square. Suppose we are moving our rook from a1 to a4. Okay, so what we have to write, we should not write the a1 square because of we are leaving it, we don't want that one. Okay, so we have to write the arriving square. Suppose the rook symbol is r. Okay, and here on the a4 square we are killing a pawn or we are killing an opponent's material, so we have to use into mark here. Okay, r into, we are reaching the a4 square with our rook, so we have to write r into a4. Okay, so now whenever we capture the c4 with the help of our rook, then we will write r into c4. Let opponent make a move. Suppose king moved somewhere and r into c4. I will show you in a score sheet. Okay, so here in the score sheet, here at the top of the score sheet, we have some white color. Here we have to write the white player name. Here we have to write the black player name. Tournament, we have to write the tournament name, on which round you played that game, and date. So on which date that round was played and what is the result. Whenever white wins the game, we have to write 1-0. Whenever black wins the game, we have to write 0-1. Whenever the game becomes a draw or a tie, we will write half-half. Like that, we will write the result. ECO codes, those are the encyclopedia codes, Nana. We don't need to write anything over there. Whenever we play a game, so the computer will suggest, okay, this game played in this variation. So it will give the ECO codes and all, but manually we don't need to write any ECO codes. That is not necessary. Okay, so let's see. This king moved somewhere like this. Now we are moving again, moving our rook and killing the e4 pawn. Okay, so r into e4, and there is a plus symbol here. Always remember, plus symbol indicates a check, means we are attacking our opponent king. That is mean by a plus. Okay, so opponent moves somewhere randomly, and this row can kill this g4 pawn also. So r into g4. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll just move the king randomly and I will capture the pawns. Okay, but here our opponent pawns are not in our rook's line. So what we have to do, we have to move our rook into the pawn's line to attack them. Suppose if we want to attack this pawn, we should move our rook to the h4, followed by we should grab the pawn on h6. Okay, so let's see how do we do that. Whenever we play rook h4, opponent make a random move, and this rook can capture h6. So what we have to write, you guys have to write it, and you can check you got the point or not. And listen carefully, whenever we are moving our rook to the h4, we will write only r h4, because of we are not capturing anything on h4 square. Whenever we are moving it to the h6, we are capturing. Okay, whenever we kill the opponent material, then only you have to use x symbol over there, or else you should not write the x symbol. Okay, after the r, we are just moving into the h4, you have to write r h4. That's it. Okay, then the next king make a random move, and now we are going to capture this h6, which we are going to kill it. So you can use x symbol over there. So r into h6. Okay, so opponent moved r into f6, opponent moves r into d6, and it's also a check. This rook is attacking the king. So when the king moves, you will grab this pawn, the last and final one. So like this, our rook will travel and it will capture the opponent's material. Okay. Our next piece is bishop. So this is a piece which travels in a slanting lines, means in a diagonals like this. Always a bishop travels in a X shape if it is in the center. This is our white bishop which travels in a white diagonal. White bishop doesn't travel in any black squares. Like this. And we'll have another bishop called black square bishop. This black square bishop always travels in the black squares. If we have both bishops, then it will be called as pair bishops. If you have a pair bishops, it will be considered as an advantage. You can control the white squares at the same time black squares also. The bishop also captures in a same way how it travels. Means the bishop will capture opponent pieces in a diagonal manner. Let's see if we have a piece, black pieces here. So now this bishop, dark square bishop, can capture this dark square knight. Now with this bishop, the light square bishop will capture this knight. Let's capture it. Like this, like this. That's it. In this position, if we want to capture this opponent knight, we have to travel like this first, then we have to take a turn and we have to capture this. So it will take two moves to capture this knight, because this bishop only captures in the pieces which is in its diagonal. But this bishop's diagonal is from here to here, like this. Or this is the another diagonal for this bishop at this square. So if we want to capture this knight, we have to enter into this diagonal. So now we have to move our bishop from this square to this one, like this. Then only we can take this knight. Now let's discuss about the queen. So this queen is the most powerful piece in our entire chess game. It is second in command, but when it comes to the power, it is more powerful than the king also. And let's see how it travels. This queen will travel like a rook in a vertical manner, means in the standing line, and it will travels like a rook in a horizontal manner also, means in a sleeping line. And especially this queen is in the black color square right now. So this queen will travels even in the black diagonal also, like a black bishop. So this queen is a combination of a bishop and a rook. Most of the people will say that the queen can travel like however it wants and all, but it is not true. It travels like a rook and it travels like a bishop. Okay, that's it. So what we will do, we will place this queen in the middle of the board. Now this queen can travel forward like a rook, backward like a rook, right side and the left side. Now it is in the black color square only, right? So that's why it travels in the black diagonal like a black bishop, means into this squares. Now we have placed our queen in the middle of the board. Now it can travel into 8 different sides, and it can control 27 squares right now. And the queen's value is 9 points. So whenever your opponent's material is in your queen's line, your queen can capture it like a rook, and if it is in a diagonal manner, it captures like a bishop. Let's place some of our opponent's material in this board. So I'm placing some pawns here. So we can travel into all these squares with our queen, and we can travel into all these squares also, because of nothing is there to stop us. But when it comes to the right side of the board, we can travel into these three squares and we can capture this, because this material is in our queen's line. That's why we can capture it. Whenever it comes to the forward manner, we can travel into these two and we can take this one. But what about this d8 square? Can our queen go to the d8? I'll give you a small example. Actually, there is a way, okay, and that way is closed by some blockade, okay. So can you jump over that and travel with your vehicle? I don't think, isn't it? So here a queen can't jump over that pawn. So it may be the knight, bishop, or rook, or anything. The pieces can't jump over the material, and if it is a knight, it can jump. So in this complete chess game, the knight is the only one piece which can jump over the material. But the queen, rook, bishop, knight, bishop, and king and pawn, they can't jump. Now let's see in the diagonals. So in this diagonal manner, we don't have any opponent pieces to capture. So we can't kill anything in the diagonal manner right now. If you look at it carefully, we have a pawn on g2 square. So now we have to use this queen and we have to capture that g2. Can we tell our opponent to move his material into our queen's line to capture it? He don't do that, right? So what we have to do is we have to move our own queen into that pawn's line. So I'll show you how do we do that. Actually, look at this pawn in a vertical manner. So if you want to attack this pawn, you should send this queen into this vertical line to attack it. So we can move the queen to g1 to attack it in the next first move, and you can take it in the second move. Okay, so that is the first way, and you can move your queen to g4. After that, you can move it to g2 to capture it. If you move your queen to g7 also, still we can attack it. So in these three ways we can attack that pawn. In the first move, we can capture it in the second move. Now we will attack this pawn in a horizontal manner. This is the second rank and the pawn is in the second rank. So you can move your queen into the f2 to attack it, and you can take it in the second move, and you can move your queen to d2 the first move, and you can take it in the second move, and even you can go to the queen b2. From here also you are attacking this one, and you can capture it in the second move itself. Now let's see the diagonal manner. So let's see this pawn's diagonal first of all. So this is the pawn's one diagonal, and this is the second diagonal. So our queen can travel into this pawn's diagonal on e4 and d5. From these two squares, our queen can attack this one, and we can capture it in the second move. So in these manners, we can attack our opponent's material with our queen, and we will capture it in the next move. Now we will learn about the king. So whenever we have a king in the middle of the board or anywhere here between this, the king will have 8 squares mobility. So he is a most valuable piece, but when it comes to the power, he is less powerful. Because of whenever we give lot of powers like a queen or a rook or a bishop, what you guys will do? So you will also use your king to attack your opponent. In that process, you may lose your king, by they can easily target your king and they can attack on your king. So if your opponent is successful in his attack, you may lose your king, means you lose your game. For that reason, we have given only minimum mobility to the king. That's why the king will travel little bit slow. But when it comes to the value, he is the highest valuable piece in our game. So the king's value is infinity, and we'll see how this king travels. He can travel into the 8 directions, but only for one move. One step forward, one step backward, one step right side, one step left side. Even the king can travel into this corner ways also. So this is the king's range right now. So whenever your opponent material is in this king's range, the king can capture it. So let me place some of our opponent's material here, and we'll see how the king captures it. If you look at it, this position, this pawn is our enemy pawn which is in our king's range. So we can take that pawn with our king like this. What if the pawn is here? That is not in our king's range. So whenever the material is not in our king's range, what we have to do? We have to move our king towards that material to attack it in one move or two moves or something. Like whenever we reach that pawn nearby, whenever the king is nearby the pawn, then we can take it in the next moves. So in this example, the king has to go one step forward. After that, he can reach that pawn and he can capture it in the second move like this. So first king comes here. In the second move, the king captures that. Each and every piece is unique. In the same way, the knight is also a very unique piece in our game. When it comes to the knight, it travels in a very different way until now. So usually this knight will travels in a L shape, but most of the people doesn't know how far. Okay, I'll tell you how it travels right now. So in each and every direction, the knight travels in a 2.5 squares. So first of all, it can travel forward, backward, right side and left side. I will show you now. So one, two, two steps forward, then it takes a right turn, or two steps forward and it takes a left turn. In the same way, the knight travels even in the backwards also. Two steps back and takes a right turn. Two steps back or takes a left turn. When it comes to the right side of the knight, it travels two steps right and goes up, or two steps right or goes down. Now let's come to the left side. 2 steps left and goes up, 2 steps left and goes down. Means this knight from this square, from the d4 square, it can go to the e6, it can go to the f5, f3, e2, c2, b3, b5 and c6 squares. If you look at carefully, this knight is in a black color square, but it is traveling into the white color square. Means always the knight will travel in the opposite color square. Especially the knight will jump directly from this d4 to the c6 and the rest of the squares, but it will not travel through the, means it will not stay on the like a d5 d6 and something like that. It will just jump from the d4 to c6 like this, in this way. Here I have placed some of our opponent's material. In this position, the knight travels in a two-and-off manner, like 2 steps forward and takes a turn, and it will capture this. Means from this d6 square, it goes to the c6 and capture that pawn. But it is not capturing any pawns which is in the way. It can't capture the d5 or d6. In the same way, we have some more material on e2. So if you want to capture, your knight can directly go to the e2 and capture it, but it can't harm anything. So your knight can jump over your opponent's material, and even it can jump over your material also. The knight value is 3 points. It is equivalent to the bishop.